Milwaukee has earned the nickname Brewtown for creating great beer.
More recently, craft brewers like Lakefront Brewery continue that tradition. Lakefront Brewery on Milwaukee's Commerce Street prides itself on innovation, local focus, and fun. Don't miss the chance to take the highly entertaining tour. And yes, beers are included.
Alrighty, welcome to each and every one of you. My name is Katie. I'm going to be your beer information disseminator. It sounds dirty, but it isn't. First question I get asked as a tour guide is, do you really get to drink on the job? My answer is hell yes. Feel free to join me. Cheers. Cheers and slancha. Next question I get asked is, well, how do you get a job here? So this is what happened to me. Many years ago, I was working in the wild and crazy world of mutual fund accounting. Yes, nothing says party like a bunch of accountants sitting in a cube, hitting their Excel spreadsheet, some button. Yeah. So I was doing that for a couple years until two of my friends took me to my favorite Irish pub, County Clare. After 2 pints of Guinness and 2 shots of Powers whiskey, they held a vocational intervention. They said, you shouldn't be an accountant, you should be a teacher. I said, you're off your flippin' nut. After 2 more shots of Powers whiskey, I thought it was a fantastic idea. So I went home to my husband, who's a tightwad CPA, squeezes a nickel to the buffalo shit. I woke him up, and I said, honey, I'm gonna be a teacher. He said, you are 40 years old and you're wasted, go to bed. So I did. That next weekend I joined a program that was a teaching program, not a drinking program. For the next 2 years, I was taking classes, teaching by day. After those 2 years, I got my master's degree in special education. More importantly, I got my first summer off. My husband, the tightwad CPA, said, hey, they don't pay you in the summer. You should get a job. I said, hey, if you want to live to see another sunset, you're never going to say that again. He said, well, maybe, you could find a job that would support your vices. So that's when I got a job here at Lakefront. That same summer, I got a job at a golf course. I've been bartending at the Pabst Riverside Theaters for 32 years. Just finished my 20th year of teaching. So I've got a full-time gig that I love with insurance, a part-time gig that I love with free beer, another part-time gig that I love with free theater tickets. Let's hear it for the American work ethic. Yeah! So damn happy. Okay, so raise your hand if you've been here before. Welcome back, repeat offenders. Raise your hand if this is your first time. All right, welcome. Welcome. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to learn a little bit about the history of beer, the basics of the beer process, and a little bit about our humble facility. So the history of beer dates back arguably about 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. That's when they found the first evidence of the fermentation of grains in what was then known as Mesopotamia. So beer's been around for a long time. The Egyptians were making and drinking beer the same day. They would get up early in the morning, mix those ingredients together. That desert heat would kick in that chemical reaction. By the end of the day, they had a rudimentary form of beer. At this point, we cheers to the ladies. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, cheers. If we were talking about the history of beer and we're cheersing to the ladies, why do you think we did that? Yes, we were the first ones to make it. We invented it. We were rocking it. And it was going really, really well for a long time. So if there were travelers coming through Egypt and they said, wow, I'm thirsty, we'd be like, here, have a beer. If somebody was traveling through Egypt and they were hungry, we'd say, well, here, have a beer, right? We were kind of rocking it. No offense, guys, you got involved and wanted to make money, charged money, and screwed up the whole damn system. We were happy giving it away like chocolate chip cookies. But I digress. Beer's been around for a long time. We're going to leap forward in history a little bit. That was my leap in history, and that's a big deal. I'm yeah, right? It was awesome, right? Just decades. I'm 61, and these are my original knees. So those of you that are older, you're going to appreciate that that's a really big deal at my age to have original parts. Okay, so what was going on in the Middle Ages, especially the European areas? We had people popping up near their water sources, lakes, rivers, streams, and oceans. And whenever you get a group of people together, inevitably you get the powers that be, right? And they sort of organize and delegate. So in the Middle Ages, you had these communities, and somebody was delegating, you're going to tend to the horses, you're going to tend to the crops, you're going to fix my Prius. Okay, I see some smiling, but no laughing. Again, I'm a special ed teacher. The Prius did not exist in the Middle Ages. So those of you that laughed, you understood, you're paying attention, nice job. It was tough living in the Middle Ages. You didn't get your days off, you didn't get weekends off, you were working all the time. And the powers that be, their families sort of owned all the land and kind of controlled everything. So our ancestors, the peasants, the serfs, and the great unwashed, and I'm assuming none of you come from a long line of money, because if you did, you wouldn't be at Lakefront Brewery on a 6:30 p.m. tour. You'd be on your yacht in the Bahamas with some guy named Coco bringing you cocktails every 30 minutes. So, do you know Coco? Yeah, that's why. That's why. So, our ancestors were working really, really hard, and we couldn't just go to the forest and kill a deer because that family that owned the land owned all the stuff in the land, right? So we relied on beer and what we could forage or grow. So our diet was relatively limited. Now, beer became a really important food source for everybody. It's got good vitamin B, carbohydrates, it tastes really good. The problem was the people making beer for the rich people were using the best ingredients. It tasted good, had a higher level of nutritional value. The people making beer for the poor people, our ancestors, the peasants, the serfs, and the great unwashed, were using things like soot, straw, hay, and in some cases, poo. So if you were poor and you were drinking a dark beer and you said, wow, this tastes crappy, that was an accurate description of that particular batch of beer, right? So the poor people are drinking poopy beer, we're working all the time, we're getting sick, we lined up all the HDACs, we said, yo, powers that be, we don't mind starving to death in the winter, work our fingers to the bone so you could live high in the hog. We do, however, mind poopy beer. Could you hook a sister up, please? They said, heck yeah. And in 1516, they established the Reinheitsgebot law, the Bavarian purity law, the Reinheitsgebot law of 1516. The Reinheitsgebot law has been amended a few times, but basically the Reinheitsgebot law sits now as it did in 1516, and again, we call it the Reinheitsgebot law. I'm sure you're all saying to yourself, gee, Katie, why do you keep repeating that word? Gee, Katie.
Why do you keep repeating that word?
It's funny that you should spontaneously in a choral manner ask that question. As a public educator, I love group participation projects. This is our first one. I'm going to say the word for you one more time. I'm going to count to 3, then we're all going to say the word together. Are we ready, class? Okay, again, the word is Reinheitsgebot. 1, 2, 3.
Reinheitsgebot.
Very good, reward yourself. Cheers, Prost, Sláinte. So the Reinheitsgebot law stated you could use arguably 3 or 4 ingredients whilst making your beer. Shout them out if you know any or all of those ingredients.
Water.
Grains, yeast. Yeast, very good. We're going to use those ingredients to talk about how we make beer, but first let's talk about how we got started. We were started by 2 brothers, Russ and Jim Klisch. They were home brewing in the mid-1980s, and I know a lot of you weren't around back then. That's hurtful. Anyway, so they were home brewing in the mid-80s. They were both making good beer. There were a lot of laws back then that prohibited home brewers from selling their beer. So Russ and Jim went to Madison, went to Washington, they changed a lot of laws. So they started Lakefront in 1987, December 2nd, okay? That first year in existence, we made approximately 200 barrels of beer. Now, if you've heard other numbers like 3 barrels or 1,000 barrels, that's because tour guides make stuff up all the time. I'm telling you it was closer to 200, okay? This is the first crew that started Lakefront Brewery, and we opened in an old bakery in River West. This is our current owner. This is Russ Klisch. He's happy because he's a recovering mechanical and chemical engineer who now owns a brewery. This is his brother, Jim. Jim is also a wonderful human being who is trying to retire, but we keep sucking him back in. Again, this was the early 90s when porn mustaches were in style, so please don't judge. This guy is Michael Jackson. You've all heard of Michael Jackson, the king of pop. This is Michael Jackson, the king of pop. Well done, class. 1987, we started Lakefront Brewery. We were at an old bakery. It was awesome. Russ and Jim were being successful, which was a surprise to a lot of people, including Russ and Jim. So about 28 years ago, they outgrew that old bakery, and we moved here to this building. This building used to be a coal refining factory, and it produced all the power for the brewers on Brewers Hill. So Schlitz, Blatz, Miller, Pabst. So all those breweries that were sort of in this area, this building produced all the power for that. So the city was going to tear this building down. Russ and Jim said, hey, let's talk, let's work out a deal, because we've outgrown the brewery and we want to be in a more central location. So after some negotiating, they agreed on about $10,000. So Russ and Jim paid $10,000 for this entire building. We've been here for 28 years. This is what Commerce Street looked like when Russ and Jim bought the building for $10,000. The only commerce going on Commerce Street were drugs and prostitution. Then you put in a local brewery, and all the hippies with rope sandals, smoking dope, like, dude, copacetic, let's go to a brewery, it's gonna be awesome. And that's why we're really busy here with all condos now, okay? This is what it was, this is what it is. We are making upwards of 50,000 barrels now. So we started with a couple hundred, 36 years later, we're now making a little over 50,000, and everything is still made here. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Let's talk about how we make beer. I'm gonna move over here. This is my media section. Y'all paid what, 13 bucks for a tour? You're getting 2 big beers and this is your tour guide? Yeah, buddy! We put all our money into the beer, so let's keep those expectations right where they belong in reality. Okay, so the first ingredient we're gonna talk about is barley. Beautiful people on the tour. This is barley in its natural state. Ooh, ah. Oh, very nice. Click. Beautiful people, this is many barley in their natural state. Ooh, ah, oh. Everybody put an arm above your head, put an arm over your head, wave it back and forth, feel the barley, be the barley in the wind. Very nice, class. So we're gonna get our barley roasted and malted. The roasting process is like anything else. The longer you roast it, the darker it gets. If you are drinking a lighter colored beer, okay, we've got all pale or base malt in there, okay? I'm gonna pass this around. If you wanna take a little smell, take a couple of kernels, try it, cool. If you don't, that's cool too. Honestly, whatever your comfort zone is, that's fine. So that's the light roast, or what we call pale malt. There's a whole bunch of malt, okay, whole bunch of malt. In the middle of the spectrum of flavors and malt is our caramel malt. This is what you're gonna see in your reds, your ambers. Think about caramelizing onions. They've got that sharp flavor. Cook them, those sugars are released. Sort of the same concept with our caramel malt. And on the far end of the spectrum, you have got dark or chocolate malt. This is what you're gonna see in your dunkels, your porters, and your stouts. Remember that grains are to beer as grapes are to wine. It is that base, it is that foundation. And we here at Lakefront are all about that base. About that base, malt, sugar, yeah, we are. This is gonna smell and taste like really, really dark chocolate or coffee. Between the pale and the dark, you should be able to smell and taste a huge difference. And again, we're calling it malt because it's been through the malting process. Now the malting process, and by the way, if I make stuff up on the tour, I will warn you with the acronym MUC, stands for making up crap, okay? We're gonna get our grains malted and roasted. The malting process, MUC, is like a college kegger. We're to put all the barley grains in Hawaiian shorts. They're gonna kick it in the hot tub for about 40 to 60 hours. Much like a college kegger, certain things are gonna get worked up. Before things explode, if you will, we stop that malting process and everything goes dormant. Y'all smell what I'm stepping in? Fantastic. So we've got our malt, we're calling it malt now. We're gonna store everything in the big white cylindrical object over here known as the BAS. That stands for big silo. When we're ready to make our beer, our full-time employees, who are awesome human beings, are gonna play with some buttons on this hopper down here. That is gonna weigh and slightly crack those grains. We're gonna use 2 pounds of grain for every 1 gallon of beer. That's double what the big breweries use. And I'm not disrespecting the big breweries. I'm just saying their tour guides are young, skinny, cute, well-dressed, have a microphone, and do not cuss like a sailor. Let me be clear. You're not going to see any of that crap here. So again, expectations where they belong. Fantastic. Thanks for hanging out. So we have got our grain, our malt. It's slightly cracked at this point, a lot like our staff. They're going to go through these two stainless steel tubes, which are actually augers. Those are going to carry our grains to our next stop, which is that white plastic hopper over there. So what's going to happen is that's going to deliver that malt into the mash tun. If you've heard of mash tun, mash kettle, it's the same vessel. If you've heard the term mash before, you were probably at a distillery tour. It's sort of the same thing. So we've got our cracked malt is in that vessel. We're going to add our next ingredient. Say it with me. Hot water. We're going to actually add hot water. I set you guys up for that. Thank you for playing along. It still makes me giggle. We're actually going to add hot water, not hops, and we're not going to boil it. So we've got that hot water in there. During that simmer, we're going to go anywhere from 130 to 170 degrees, and those sugars, enzymes, flavors, all that really good stuff is going to be released into solution. We're going to have a hot sweet liquor called Wort, W-O-R-T. It's like a bottle of Zima in the hot August sun for 3 weeks. It's really sweet. I'm not disrespecting Zima. I'm just saying it came out in the early 90s when people were dressing like idiots and doing cocaine at the discotheque, but that's just my opinion. So we've got the sweet hot liquor. We're now going to transfer everything over to the lauter tun. Think of the lauter tun as a coffee filter or a strainer. That stainless steel vessel looks like it's got a porthole on top. That's where we're going to put our wort. All the spent grains are going to be captured on top. That hot wort, that hot liquor is going to fall to the bottom. We're now going to gently sprinkle or sparge those grains to get the last bits of flavors and energies out. Class, on the count of 3, sparge. 1, 2, 3. Sparge. Very good. That's your new toilet word next time you're number 1 in it. Instead of, it feels like a resource, you're not going to do that. You're going to go, whoa, I have to sparge, and off you go to the loo. Okay, so it's a new toilet word. So we've sparged all the, use it. People will respect you even more. So we've sparged all those grains. We're then going to give and sell our spent grains to local farmers in the area. They're going to use it for cattle feed, work it into the soil to help happy plants grow. We're going to bring that wort over to this copper kettle over here, which is the brew kettle. At this point, we're going to add hops. We're not going to add this type of hops because it's plastic and fake, absolutely, and that would not be okay. Hops has one cousin in the world of plants. Cannabis, marijuana, ganja, dope, weed, yes. I am not here to talk about the pros and pros of marijuana. I'm saying that these two plants are related. And young people, do not smoke hops. You're going to end up as a tour guide at Lakefront Brewery. Please make better choices. So we're going to add hops for a couple of reasons. We're going to add bittering hops. We're going to add flavoring hops. Flavoring hops is going to add that subtle nuance flavors, right? So if you're drinking a tropical IPA and we didn't add mango or anything to it, those subtle flavors are coming from the tropical hops. The bittering hops is going to balance that sweetness from the wort. So we're going to add both types of hops. We're going to add it a couple times and boil it. Once we're done boiling, we're then going to transfer everything over to those stainless steel tanks over there, which are fermentation tanks. This is when we're going to add that last ingredient, which is yeast. And yeast, as everybody knows from science class, is an asexual, single-celled organism whose sole purpose in life is to gobble up fermentable sugars, have sex with itself to reproduce, and it's going to poop out CO2 and alcohol. The CO2 is going to bubble off. The alcohol remains in solution. Now we have another group participation project. I'm going to say, hey class, what does yeast do? And we're all going to respond with eat, sex, and poo. We've got a camera. Don't get caught up on this one, okay? It's 2 eats, 1 sex, 1 poo. Hey class, what does yeast do? Eat, sex, and poo. Nicely done. That was beautiful. So those yeasties are eating, sexing, and pooping for several weeks. When they fall to the bottom, this is called flocculation. Class, on the count of 3, flocculation. 1, 2, 3. Flocculation. Very good. It's spooning for yeast. All the yeasties are at the bottom, snuggling up, smoking cigarettes, going, man, I'm good. That is flocculation. Then when we're done with that, we're gonna put stuff through the flux capacitor or the heat exchanger, and then we're gonna get a whirlpool out and just make sure all the bits are out of the beer. Then we're gonna package our beer. Before we talk about packaging, we're gonna get another beer. Is that agreeable with everybody? Fantastic. We're gonna go downstairs into a live brewery, which is more fun than a dead one. As such, we've got a couple of rules for safety first. And I wouldn't have to say any of this if it hadn't been a problem in the past. So, first of all, secure a beer buddy. If at any point during the rest of the tour you think you might trip and fall, immediately hand your beer to your beer buddy before completing the fall. Okay? Got it? Also, common sense is an endangered species, which forces me to make this next announcement. If you see liquid on the floor, it is not beer. So I don't want to see you liquor pigs. Oh, the free beer, drink it, it's free, I'm awesome. Please don't do that. It's sanitation solution. If you drink it, you're gonna die. All right? So can we all agree not to ingest anything from the brewery floor? Yeah. Is that fair? Okay, fantastic. We're gonna head downstairs. Follow me. So I was explaining before that copper kettle and this control center, if you will, is part of an original brew house that started in Germany a little over 200 years ago. The other copper kettle stopped working and duct tape didn't help anymore, so we had to pay for stainless steel. That copper kettle is in the back of our beer hall for the entrance to the patio. So if you go to that door back there and you look up, you're gonna see a shiny copper kettle. That was here back then. Some of the controls on here are still written in German. So we've got heiß for hot, kalt for cold. We figure if it ain't broke, don't fix it, use duct tape, right? So it's still working, thank you duct tape. All right, head downstairs. Come hither, young learners, seekers of information. In December of 2022, we took down our bottling line and we put in our canning line. I know a lot of people that are my age and older were like, whoa, you got rid of bottles. Bottles are awesome. Cut the grass, drink a bottle of beer, it's awesome. Okay, I get it. I'm one of those old people. Russ and Jim don't do anything without doing a lot of research. So when we were hearing young people talk about canning, it's great, it's better for the environment, we heard all these things. Russ pontificates a lot and makes sure that there's data and research and science to back that up. With all that information, Russ said, you know what, we should go to cans. The bottles we were using, even the brown bottles, were allowing a little bit of sunlight to come in, which would oxidize the beer, make it taste skunky, right? Cans don't do that. Bottles can break, cause damage. Bottles are heavy, more expensive to ship. So we're gonna start right here. This is the SCAFab, this cage. What's gonna happen is we're gonna put huge pallets of empty cans are gonna go into the SCAFab. That is gonna bring layer by layer those empty cans up to this, I guess I would call it a track or conveyor belt. That's gonna push those cans single file. But the cans are gonna go on their little trek, their little odyssey. Halfway down, they're gonna go down a ramp. Halfway down that ramp, there's a little metal box that's gonna flip those cans up. We're gonna deionize those cans to make sure we've got no bits of dust or anything in there. Then they're gonna get flipped up, they're gonna go on the KHS machine, they're gonna scurry around, they're gonna get filled, they're gonna get a top on top, we're gonna crimp that shut, then most of them will get a label. Some of our big batch beers already come labeled, which is great. The other ones are gonna go to the back of the KHS machine, grab a label, and then come through our assembly area. They're gonna group those cans in 4, 6, 12 packs. They're gonna go through the packaging area, which is gonna put the equivalent of 24 cans on each flat. And then our top tier orange Gentle Giant at the end over here is our palletizer. So essentially, depalletized, organized, filled, topped, labeled, organized, palletized. All good? Cool. Please follow me safely. We're going to talk about kegging, which is really impressive. And I say that with a bit of sarcasm. Several years ago, we joined the 21st century, we started using Sankey kegs. Sankey kegs are what everybody's using. They're streamlined, they've got handles, they stack well, they're awesome. When we're ready to keg our beer, we're gonna take a Sankey keg, we're gonna turn it upside down on our KHS machine in the back, the ball bearing. This is called the ball and cock. That's because this is a male-dominated industry, and they love to use the terms ball and cock anytime they can. So this ball and cock in the middle is a ball bearing. We're going to turn it upside down on the KHS machine. Ball bearing gets pushed in, it gets cleaned. Then we're going to turn it upside down on the other part of the KHS machine. Ball bearing gets pushed in, it gets filled with beer. Isn't that peachy? I've been employed here for 19 years. When I first started, we made 7,000 barrels. So even in 19 years, we've gone from 7,000 barrels a year to a little over 50. Back then, we were still using the Hoff-Stevens kegs. Hoff-Stevens kegs are old school. That's because you had to pull or pump the beer from the top, but we filled it from the side. Now, all you young whippersnappers that are recently out of college, you're doing kegs and eggs, 10 count to keg stands on the Sankey kegs. And that is so cute. Us old farts are training you on these bad boys. And I'm here to tell you from extensive research that it takes far more core strength and balance to do a 10 count on this bad boy than it does that Sankey keg. So next time you're at parents' weekend or homecoming, see a bunch of old farts like me running around, we get our cred and our props because we were training you on these bad boys. Let's talk about what we used to do. MUC. Back in the day when we were ready to keg using our Hoff-Stevens kegs, the beer master would turn the lights down low, lights were on, but therapy candles, and put on a little berry white. They would caress this vessel of love, talk softly to it, and make it feel safe and comfortable. At just the right moment, they would take their abnormally large probe and insert it into the vessel of love. Like a past boyfriend of mine, in 90 seconds, they'd be done. Then they would take out their abnormally large probe. They had to seal it. Does anybody know what we call that wood? Yes. Premature holding, but it is a bung. Excellent. They would take a wooden plug called the bung. Class, on the count of 3, bung. 1, 2, 3. Nice. If we've got a bung and we're going to put it into a hole, what do you think we call that opening? It is the bung hole. Very good, class. So we had our bung in our bung hole. We had to seal it with the bung whacker. Don't use that term in the UK. It has an entirely different connotation. So we had our bung in the bung hole. We would whack, 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 and make a seal. Who remembers Laverne and Shirley? Oh, thank God. Those numbers are getting fewer and fewer. Kids, back in the day, there was a thing called a television. And it was a wood veneer box that had a glass tube inside. And if there was an electrical storm outside, you got the youngest member of the family to put tinfoil on the end of the antenna. Because the younger you are, the easier you are to replace in case of electrocution, right? If you're young, we can just make another one, right? So back in the day, we had this television show. It was called Laverne and Shirley. It was set here in the city of Milwaukee at a fictitious brewery called Shots. The opening credits of Laverne and Shirley. Laverne and Shirley are on their way to work. They got their winter coats on. Shamil, Shmazel, Hazen, Pfeffer, blah, 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 blah. And then there's a part in the opening credits where they take their work glove, they put it on top of a bottle of beer and wave bye-bye as it goes past. We will be emulating that point. So these are the words. Yes, they've been autographed by the original Laverne and Shirley. They've been here a couple of times. Obviously not anymore because they've passed. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Shamil. Shmazel, sorry. Give us any chance, we'll take it. Read us any rule, we'll break it. We're gonna make our dreams come true. Fist pump! Okay, we stop. I'm sorry. After 20 years, I hate that song. Okay, so that's the tour. Before I turn you loose on society, a couple of things. The wristbands that you're wearing, you're gonna trade those into the gift shop, which is essentially above us. Okay, you're gonna trade that in. You're going to get a pint glass as a thank you for coming on our tour. If you've got a bunch of these at home already, that means you attend UWM, Marquette, or MSOE, and this is how you stocked your dorm room. That's okay. Class, we've got one more group participation project. I want you to find that in life of which you're the most passionate. We're going to bring that passion from the soles of our feet through our innermost being to the top of our heads. On the count of 3, we're going to yell, I love beer. Are we all comfortable with that? Okay, I love beer on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I love beer. Fantastic. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to self-ambulate up those stairs. Okay. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to make stuff up. So it's up to you to figure out if I'm being factual or creative. All good? Yep. Fantastic. You guys are awesome. Thank you so, so much.
We headed upstairs to meet craft beer pioneer Russ Klisch and ask him more about the brewery.
Hi, I'm Russ Klisch, president, founder, and owner of Lakefront Brewery. Yeah, I guess I do consider myself a craft beer pioneer. I mean, you look back in those days and how many breweries there was. When I first started, I think there was less than 100 craft breweries. It was, or maybe less than 50 in the United States. It was a big thing when somebody opened. You got a big write-up in the New Brewer, and it was big news that there's another brewery in the country. And now you get new breweries popping up, and local newspaper might write something about it, but it's not a national thing. Trying to convince everybody to drink craft beer, was the hardest thing to do along the way. A lot of people didn't understand what malt or hops were. People didn't understand that hops gave beer bitterness. Or didn't understand that the dark color of beer should really come from roasted grains. And those are things that, my brother and myself, big things that we've, had to do along the way to get craft beer to where it is today. Yeah, we've done a lot of historical preservation things along the way. The building alone, if we went and bought this one, it would have been torn down, so it's great to see an old Cream City brick building in the city of Milwaukee. Keep here, we have other things. If you walk into our beer hall, you'll see the old Plankington lanterns that we've had from the old Plankington Hotel. The city actually auctioned those off. They fit our room perfectly, so I brought them down and we installed them, so they're original arts and craft whites built over 100 years ago. We've done other things like buy Bernie Brewer's Chalet from the county stadium, and we have the old beer mug in front, which fits us perfectly. A lot of people come in and they just love the mug. They don't even understand it was from county stadium. But we do have the chalet here that you can rent as a date night with your significant other if you like to come on in. We also have a good display of memorabilia in the brewery from old-time brewers. Currently, if you come to our brewery, you'll see the Three Stooges. They have their arms out on the front of our building. And there are sentries for our building right now, but they originally were some of the original brewing tanks that we had at our old facility, where you found a lot of dairy tanks. They came out of the Seal Test Dairy in Milwaukee. We bought them, they came over here. We used them as fermenters in our old place up in Chambers, and then we moved down here, we brought them, but they got old. They weren't the best brewing tanks, didn't have the best jackets on them. They started leaking, and so we had to retire the tanks. But we had Larry Moe and Curly painted on the front. In the old place, we had a bunch of stooges working for us. They thought that would be the appropriate thing to represent the employees in the place. We brought them down. Everybody took their pictures in front of them, so it was great. I didn't want to throw them out, and so I just put them on the side of the building. One day, a metal sculpture guy comes by and goes, "You know what I could do? I can cut off the fronts of them, put an I-beam on the side, put some arms on the tanks, and we can bring them back." And I thought that was a great idea because it kind of helps show the progression of the brewery. You're still keeping some of the old with the new as we have, and now they're great sentries for us and welcoming people here. When we first started the brewery, we were basically just a manufacturing place. But my brother gave very funny tours. I like to tell people that I gave like a science teacher tour where if you want to learn pH and enzymes, you can talk to me, but if you want a good laugh, you could listen to my brother's tour. And so anyway, we started getting a lot of people to come on our tours. Also, in fact, we gave beer first. It seemed to help a lot, which also helped them laugh at the jokes, goofy jokes that you told. If you didn't have a beer in their hand, they wouldn't be laughing. People like entertaining tours. And so we started hiring tour guides that were like from local comedy troupes, theater people, things on that sort. So we got a lot of people in here. All of a sudden you realize, well, you should be feeding them something. So I decided to start our own restaurant. And that's been going for over 10 years now. And it's been very successful, winning best fish fry, best cheese curds, best place to take an out-of-town guest. That old Milwaukee word Glameetlikite is preserved very nicely here. Throughout the years, we have tried to do a lot of local sourcing. We have had barley grown in the state for us. We've had, also still today, have hops grown up around Wausau. So anytime you can buy local or buy close, it helps the environment, helps the local economy, and also has like a terroir for the beer that you can say is like more of a Wisconsin flavor that's in there, that's positive. But to me, it's important just from a economical standpoint to try to help other people, but we also try to get a lot of local sourcing from for our restaurant. If you look at the cheese curds come right down the road from us that we have that we're famous for, from the Clock Shadow Creamery, the pretzels from Milwaukee Pretzel Company, the sausage from Musinger's, all those ingredients all made within a couple miles of here, and also it's great food. So we're lucky to have not just the fact that we're buying them, but that is the best ingredients that we can get. Yeah, one of the things we have been known for throughout the years is innovation. We were the first brewery to be certified organic and make an organic beer. That was back in 1995. Also the first brewery to petition the government to make a gluten-free beer. Newgrist, we're still making that one today, and that's still, like I say, one of the largest selling pilsners of gluten-free in the United States and in Canada. We were the leading exporter to Canada of beer because of the gluten-free. We were first to do an indigenous beer. We were talking about local ingredients, but we have local malt, we had local hops. Also, I got someone to work up some of the hop malt we had here. We basically just crushed it and put it in a test tube, and it started to ferment. And we were able to find wild yeast on there, so we were able to have all four with those. Our best-selling beers are River West Stein beer. That's the beer my brother was trying to make when he was homebrewing, and since 1987, it's been our biggest seller every year. The brewery has won a lot of different awards, from World Beer Cup, Great American Beer Festival, European Beer Star awards, which to me are nice awards to win. I mean, we've won like Oktoberfest, we've won Pilsner, and that's with judging with German brewmasters, judging the beer. And so they don't know what beer they're tasting. They think they're tasting stuff from Germany or wherever, but when you win those awards, from them, you know that that's a nice compliment.
We recommend visiting Lakefront for a couple of beers, a tour, and great food. Wisconsin is the state to find great drinks. Stop at this spot for a cold one.